Recreational cannabis is set to be legalized in Canada on October 17th, and even though edibles won't yet be legalized until sometime in 2019, there are companies already preparing, like beer company Molson Coors Canada, who tweeted this out. Molson Coors Canada is partnering with Canadian company Hexo to develop a line of cannabis-infused beverages. It's the company's first venture into cannabis, which is expected to be made legal in Canada later this year. Now, this is a big shift from where the alcohol industry was before. So for years, the alcohol industry has pushed back against the legalization of cannabis because in their mind, it eats into their market. And I could say I agree with them. So in places like Colorado, we have seen, for example, drunk driving go down because it's expected that more people are, or suspected that more people are using cannabis and drinking less beer. But this is a company showing a turnaround and really trying to get on board and get ahead of the wave by having their own cannabis-infused drinks. And one of the other, I guess, benefits about this is there is still this stigma around cannabis. And I think a large part of it is because of the smoking of it. So because there was such this negative view of smoking cigarettes, a lot of that viewpoint is then carried over to cannabis use. And I mean, to me, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I can understand someone who isn't very educated on cannabis feeling like the smoking of cannabis is, I mean, if smoking cigarettes is bad, then smoking cannabis is bad. Well, no. So, I mean, again, burning anything and inhaling it there's going to be some effect on your lungs. But ultimately, studies show that there really isn't that much of an effect because, of course, a joint doesn't have the same kind of toxins that a cigarette does. But when you turn cannabis into an edible, it takes a lot of that stigma out of it, especially if you start selling something like a beer or something that looks like a beer, something made by Molson. So a Molson Canadian cannabis drink is, I think, going to be very, very welcomed into Canadian culture because it's going to fit right next to beer drinking. So this is, I'm really curious to see how this all plays out because drinking has clear and obvious side effects. You get too drunk, from whether it's you wake up the next day with a bad headache or you become an alcoholic and ruin your life. Whereas cannabis doesn't have that same side effect. Of course, there are some side effects, but in terms of ruining your life, it's just not as common. And it doesn't kill you the same way that alcohol kills people every year. But let me share a little bit more here, because this isn't just necessarily about making people feel good. There's also, the approach they're taking is also a wellness approach. So this quote from Sebastien St. Louis, who is Hexo's CEO and co-founder. When you think about sports supplementation, reduced inflammation, when you think about diet drinks, these are all things that we can introduce with various molecules available in cannabis. So I think this really shows you the stark contrast between cannabis and alcohol. You're never going to see a wellness alcoholic drink. I mean, unless you're thinking about it in terms of making you feel good. But for sports, for reducing inflammation, there just is no beer that does that. But now there's going to be drinks that not only will make you feel good, but will also have the added benefit of actually being good for you. So this, I think, really will cut into the beer market. But I don't know. Let's wait and see. And while I can understand maybe some people being angry at a company like Molson Coors now getting to benefit from the legalization of cannabis after there was years of them fighting against it, this is still a good shift. This is where cannabis should be going. And even though it should have been legal all along, it is now becoming legalized. And it's going to become more and more normalized to the point where the stigma, I think, will eventually completely dissipate.